Everyone calls makeup vanity. Well, except neuroscientists, who know it serves a bigger purpose. Hi there, I'm a vet, a neuroscientist, and I am 5 months into a challenge to try to rewire my brain in a year. And during this challenge, I realized how much aesthetics hold power over us. So today, I will break down 20 years of research into 5 neuroscience-backed reasons how makeup actually rewires your brain. And if you stay till the end, reason number 5 is so well evidenced that hospitals literally use it as therapy. Makeup has nothing to do with how you look, which is exactly why it works. Let me explain. So in 2021, researchers ran functional MRI scans on blind women applying makeup. Different parts of the brain lit up, like the nucleus accumbens, pallidum, and the hippocampus. These different brain parts usually light up in the brain's reward memory circuit. And these women couldn't see the result in the mirror, which means that the dopamine hit wasn't coming from looking pretty. It was coming actually from the act itself of applying the makeup. So your brain treats this ritual as a primary reward, the same way it treats food and money. And the reward effect seen on the blind participants prove it. But if dopamine were the only thing happening, you just feel a little happier, right? However, makeup can also change your body chemistry. Putting makeup on is just aesthetics. Well, wrong. Because in 2024, researchers ran a randomized controlled trial and measured one stress marker before and after women applied makeup. They observed a 55% drop in salivary cortisol after their first application. Now, cortisol is your stress hormone, and chronically elevated cortisol is linked to anxiety, sleep problems, weight gain, brain fog, even a weaker immune system. The women in the study, who weren't even regular makeup users, saw their stress chemistry reduce from one application. And this gets even better, because their depression scores dropped by 8 points on a clinical scale, and their self-image scores jumped by 25%. And all of these results came from just putting on some makeup. So the study shows that makeup can also have a hand in regulating your stress. Now, if your stress hormones drop, what happens to your ability to think clearly under pressure? In academic psychology, there is a term called the lipstick effect, and the effects show up on test scores. 186 college students walked into a simulated university exam, and the researchers split them into 3 groups. One group put on makeup before the test, one group listened to happy mood-boosting music, and the last group just colored on a sheet of paper. So, from these 3 groups, guess which group scored highest? Yeah, you guessed it right. It was the makeup group by a clear margin. And this isn't a one-off. There are other studies which show that how we look affect our cognition. For example, in this study, they showed that clothes that carry meaning, like for example a doctor's coat, can improve certain cognitive abilities. However, not when the same coat was labeled as a painter's coat. So it seems that whatever you wear or apply carries symbolic meaning your brain acts on. Makeup is the facial version of putting on a power suit. Your brain reads the signal that you are prepared, and your prefrontal cortex actually performs better because of this. But your performance isn't the only thing that is changing. Other people's brains change too when they look at you. I think this point is the most underrated of the 5, because it explains why all the other points compound. Researchers gave people 250 milliseconds, which is a quarter of a second, to judge faces. And this is faster than you can blink. So the makeup faces consistently came back as more competent, more trustworthy, and more likable. And this is consistent with another study where they found that attractive faces activate the viewer's reward circuit, meaning that the feel-good chemical dopamine is released by just, looking at you. And this creates a feedback loop. Because you apply makeup, you feel rewarded, others see you, and their brains feel rewarded, and then they treat you better. And then the treatment becomes another reward signal for your brain, and the loop reinforces itself. And the thing is this, that it is not just attractiveness either. So studies found that women wearing cosmetics were perceived as having higher earning potential and having more prestigious jobs. However, stop. Before you'd go and dump your face in all of the cosmetics you can find, you should hear this. Because the same study that I mentioned earlier, where faces with makeup were rated better, there was something that I skipped. Because they also found that at heavy, glamorous makeup levels, trust and likability scores actually went down with longer inspection time. So, at a real conversation, bold makeup has a negative effect, and the sweet spot in the research was to use natural to professional makeup. So, In other words, just keep it tasteful. And everything I've told you so far might sound nice, but maybe you might think that these are optional. Well, the next reason, maybe you don't think so. There's a global program called Look Good, Feel Better. It's been running since 1989 and it runs in 27 countries. And it doesn't run in beauty stores or spas, but rather in oncology wards and cancer treatment centers. The program targets cancer patients in active chemotherapy, one of the most psychologically vulnerable populations on Earth. And in this program, patients go through a makeup workshop as part of their treatment. The data on it is quite extraordinary. The program reports improved self-image and self-esteem boost. And additionally, they report measurable improvements in anxiety scores, social interaction, and general quality of life. And this effect is not only seen in this program. However, for example, in 2023, there was a study on elderly women in Taiwan. And the subject of the study were community-dwelling seniors with depression. And for the study, they ran a 13-week beauty therapy program. The result was a statistically significant drop in depression, which is great to see that the effects that we discussed throughout this video can be used to bring joy and improve the lives of patients in the clinic. And like this, we have 5 effects, and every one of them measurably influences our brains. But makeup is not the only way how to rewire the brain. For example, changing your outfit can also do that, which, well, I cover in this video over here. And with this, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!